I'm gonna show you guys an AI system you can put together in less than an hour that you can sell for a few $100s easily for any business that has a contact form on their website that they have people fill out in order to actually contact the business. Let me explain to you what's happening. Most businesses have a contact form on their website, right? Somebody who is interested in contacting the business usually has to fill out this form right here and actually submit it. Now, typically this form submission goes in a queue where somebody from the team basically has to open up that email or wherever that form's response actually gets sent to, look at the information, and then send an email back to whoever filled it out, either asking them for more information, responding to them, trying to get them on a calendar, or trying to do whatever it is that the company needs them to do in that very first step. Now, when you're a business, this is very, very important. The reason why is because the people who fill out these forms are warm leads. The reason they are warm is because they are interested right now. And the longer a business actually takes to respond to these warm leads through email, the colder that lead becomes, meaning they start shopping around, looking somewhere else, or their desire to buy or do whatever it is that they want to do in that moment starts to fade away. And so something very, very important that a lot of businesses struggle with right here is something called speed to lead. This is the pain point that this system is targeting right here. This AI automation is going to completely automate this by having AI analyze the entire form responses and then send a completely personalized human-like email response to whoever filled out the form for a business within minutes, as if it's actually coming in from a team member directly to them. Like somebody actually sat there behind the keyboard, typed everything out after they looked at it, and then click send. Now, the reason this is super valuable is because doing this manually takes a lot of time for team members. It is time consuming. They have to open up those responses, look at whatever was submitted, and then type up their reply and then click send. And so when companies get a lot of them, it's harder to get back to these customers and often takes a lot more time. I've seen these messages that saying, hey, we'll reach out within 12 hours or 24 hours. We're shrinking that. We're trying to completely get rid of that. And so they're going to get a super personalized response from a team member, but it's going to put that speed to lead time on basically steroids for them. And that's why businesses are going to want this. So let me show you what I mean right now. I'm literally just going to demo it live in front of you. This is a super simple form. Obviously, the real form is going to be much more. It has more details, but it's the same exact idea, same concept. And to show you, it does not matter what they fill out here. I'm literally going to go to ChatGPT. I'm going to say, generate a random job title and a random company name. Give me only that. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take whatever ChatGPT gives me right now and I'm gonna fill it out inside the form. So look at this. As soon as I click submit, you're gonna see the email land in this mailbox right here, literally within like a minute or two. Now, obviously, in the real world system, you're gonna want to add a few minute delay before the message actually gets sent in the mailbox. But look at this. Boom, it just landed in here. It came in from my mailbox, right? And it used the first name that I used, which was George. And take a look at this body right here. Hello, George. Thank you for sharing information. I see you're a senior data analyst at blah, blah, blah. It used the information that we just cooked up inside of ChatGPT. And look at this. It started following up with whatever way that we wanted to follow up. Obviously, this looks like somebody took the time and actually opened, looked at the responses and typed it up. But this is speed to lead. This is what businesses love, speed to lead, because the customer feels like they're catered to, that somebody is on top of it and they're actually reaching out to them. And so now, if I was the customer, I would just send a reply and then let the team do whatever they have to do. But this right here, folks, is worth so much to businesses. You can literally put this together for less than an hour. Also, if you're watching this video, it means I already posted the full tutorial on how to actually put this thing together on YouTube. If you just comment the word lead inside of the comments here, my automation is going to send you the link to your DMs. Boom, just like that. So when you're building any kind of automation system, you need to start by defining the moment that kicks everything off, and that's essentially your trigger. And it's really, really important to know your trigger for the automation, because that essentially is your starting line whenever you're actually building. So in our case right here, in automating form submission, obviously the submission itself would be the trigger here, since that is the moment when somebody actually hits submit on the form. And here we're using Tally as that form platform. And the reason for that is because, one, it's super simple and easy to set up and use, while also being free. And it does actually look professional in their templates. Now, do keep in mind, you don't actually have to use just Tally. In fact, you can use literally any form collecting platform that you want to use, but it has to support something called webhooks. So what we're looking for here is for it to send a webhook. And if you have no idea what a webhook is and how it actually works, let me explain it to you. So if you've never heard of a webhook, I'm going to explain to you how we're going to use it to automate lead capture, and then I'm going to draw it out to you and give you a full detailed breakdown in a super simple way. So let's assume we have a form right here, right? And this form you're using to send out to clients, and essentially they're filling out their first name, last name, email, whatever it may be. What we have right here is any workflow automation platform, whether that's N8N, whether that's Make.com, whether it's Zapier, whether it's Power Automate. It doesn't matter what it is. As long as it's a workflow automation platform that you're going to be using to actually build out the rest of this AI automation, that could be it. So what we're doing here is essentially we have Mr. Joe Schmo, and he's filling out the form. So he goes and he says, my first name is Joe. Go ahead and spell that right. And then my last name is Schmo, right? And he gives us all the details that we care about as a, as a lead. So how do we get this information from the form itself to our workflow automation system? Well, a second this guy hits submit, we want to be able to tell the form to send that information to a private address, which is going to work to collect that information as soon as it gets sent. So what does that look like? Think about it like a postal office, right? This is our mail, and we need to tell the platform where to send our mail. So we're literally going to go inside of our workflow automation system, and we're going to generate that address. And it's going to look something like this, right? With a bunch of numbers and letters. And it's going to be super, super complex because we don't want anybody sending mail to this address. We want it to be a private one. And we're also going to be sending it via HTTPS. So we want a secure way of sending this information over the internet. So that way everything's encrypted. So we're going to take this address and we're going to generate it inside of our workflow. Then we're going to take that actual address and then we're going to give it to our form, which is going to be the client business application hosting it. In our case, could be Tally, but then it could be also Google Forms or whatever form platform that you're actually using. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to tell it, hey, every time somebody submits, I want you to send it to this address. So boom, somebody goes ahead and actually clicks submit. What happens now is we're going to send this in a post HTTPS request. And this is essentially the protocol that we're going to be using to this address right here. So the body of this request, or shall I say the actual data transfer, is going to be this right here, the information. And it's going to get sent into this address. Once this address receives it, then it's going to grab it and then we're going to transfer it into the rest of our workflow automation for further processing, whether that's storing it somewhere, whether that's sending it to some sort of large language model for processing, whatever may be. As long as we can generate this address, give it to the form client itself, and then tell them whenever you submit, I want you to send it to this address, then we can receive this via post HTTPS right here. And then we can actually work with that data and do whatever we need to it. Now let's start from the beginning, and I'm going to start building this as if I were in your shoes. So we're literally going to start from scratch. First, I'm going to go to tally.so and then I'm going to sign up for an account here. So I'm going to click the sign up button at the top right. And then I'm going to click continue with Google just to make this quick and easy. I'm going to select one of my Google accounts. I'm going to click continue. And here at this point, I'm just going to click take me to Tally and skip that. So here we are. Now we are at a blank canvas and we can go ahead and create a form. But at this point, our goal is not to really dive too much time into actually creating the UI of the form. What we want to do is we want to build the architecture, build our concept, and then you can go back and actually refine the form itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to templates here at the left side, and then I'm just going to select any one of the templates. So let's just see. Let's pick this first one, registration form. It looks like it has a first name, last name, email address, phone number, 2 fields for job, and then a country. Simple enough, right? At the top right, I'm going to click use this template in blue, which I'm assuming is probably going to import it. And here we are, right? So now it's imported. So at this point, we have a form that collects data, but on its own, it does nothing. It just sits there waiting. And that's where make.com comes in. So we're going to need to log into make.com. And if you've never used Make before, you can create a free account. Super easy, super simple. Just like how we did with Tally, click get started for free, sign up with Google, and they'll actually give you 1,000 free operations to work with on a new account, which is actually more than enough to actually build out this exact automation for free. But once we're inside of Make, we're going to create a new scenario here at the top. So think of a scenario like a workflow or a circuit. It is basically a chain of logic that runs every time that trigger fires. And so I'm going to show you a quick example of one of them. Let's just go ahead and say this, scrape businesses scenario right here. If I click on it, you guys can see this is a flow that I built. I actually made a video about this earlier, which basically goes out and does a bunch of scraping for local businesses and a whole lot of data parsing. And then we use some AI to personalize. So, but this is essentially what a flow is. It's just a chain, which is logical, and then we can configure it and actually do whatever we need to do with it. So we're going to create a new scenario. And in this new scenario, the first thing we're going to search for is going to be Tally. So once you're inside of the scenario builder, inside of Make, we're going to click the plus sign and we're going to search for Tally. You won't see it at the top like you just did, but whenever you do search, you're going to see this watch new responses node along with another one. But the one we care about is going to be exactly this one. It's self-explanatory. It's going to watch for responses and essentially trigger the automation whenever that response gets submitted. So if I click into that, you're going to see the first option we see is to create a webhook. This is the exact same webhook that I explained to you guys earlier. We're going to have to create that address and then link it to Tally. So that way, whenever that form does get submitted, Tally knows where to send this information to make.com. And that's what we're going to do right now. So we're going to click create a webhook. First thing we have to do is name our webhook. This could be anything. This is just for organization. So we're just going to call it tally test. Now at this point, you're not going to see this connection. You're going to see create a connection or add a connection. This is how we're going to tie tally into our make.com account. What you're going to want to do is click the button that's there or click add. And this is very simple. Here, we're just going to select the Google account that we actually signed up to tally with. So what I'm going to do is name this connection, and I'm just going to name it the same thing, tally test connection. It doesn't really matter what you want to name it, but you do want to be organized. And then I'm going to click save. Now, once I click save, you guys are going to see there's a pop-up right here, which is asking us to authorize Make with Tally. This is basically how Make.com is going to have the permissions to do whatever it needs to do in order to talk with the form submitting platform. So I'm going to click accept right here. And then once I click accept, we're going to see that this connection is getting verified. And there it is, folks. Now it is established. Now that we have that connection created, we can see this form ID dropdown is available to be selected. And I'm sure you can guess what happens at this point when I click it. Boom, I can see all of the forms that I have inside of my Tally account. So you guys can see that this is the exact registration form that we grabbed, and it's actually selectable, meaning we can tie the webhook to this exact form. And so we just created an invisible handshake, basically a real-time connection between our Tally form and make.com. And so think about it like this, right? We're laying down a tripwire. Whenever somebody steps on it, in this case submits the form, that trigger instantly notifies make.com and wakes up this webhook. And that's really what makes this really powerful and actually responsive. That's the whole purpose for this, right? We want this to be working as soon as somebody actually submits that form. So now what we need to do is actually test that connection. So inside of make.com, we're going to click this run once button at the bottom. What this does is it puts the entire scenario into a listening state. Now it's sitting quietly, basically waiting for an event to happen. In our case, that would be the form submission. No action occurs until it hears something. So essentially we're simulating what would happen if a real user actually interacted with this form. Now on a separate browser tab, we're going to open up this form right here, and then we're just going to fill it out quickly with some dummy data, right? Name, email, phone number, whatever it may be. The actual values don't matter here because what we're really testing out is the connection itself. Now I just finished filling out the form. It's all fake information. As soon as I click register, I'm literally going to jump immediately back to make.com. And what we should see is that make.com's webhook should actually catch all that information and we can see it light up green. So let's go ahead and test it. I'm going to click register and then I'm going to jump back and you guys can see how quickly this is going to fire. Boom, just like that. This green module right now tells me that the connection between Tally and make.com is live. This is amazing. Now, if I click this number one up the top right here, we're going to see something called your output bundle. This is essentially all of the pieces of information, all of the data that was submitted from Tally into Make. And you guys can see we have several different fields, such as the form ID, the form's name, what time it was created, the respondent's ID, and all this other metadata that we have here. But if we dig down into fields, we can see this is literally every single field that the form has, along with the answer that the prospect would have submitted. So we can see the first name, last name, email, phone number, where do they work, job, what country do they live in. This is literally exactly the same fields. Now keep this in mind, whatever fields you actually configure here, once those fields are filled out, you're going to be able to use these pieces of information as individual variables in subsequent modules inside of make.com. That's the beauty of workflow automation systems. So if I were to tie this into some other business application, I'm sure you guys can see the puzzle pieces fitting right now. Let's just go ahead and say Google Sheet. At this point, we technically can store this data. So I'm going to click this Google Sheet module right here. And let's just say we want to add a new row every time that information gets collected. And that row is going to contain that information. So I'm going to click this add a row right now. And I'm going to also create a new connection. Now, creating connections generally in make.com is super simple. Just as if we did earlier, we're going to click sign in. And then we're going to do the same thing for Google Sheets right now. But I've already connected my Google Sheets account. If you have not connected it, you would click add, sign in with Google, and that should be it for Google Sheets. Now, at this point, what I'm going to do is I don't have an actual sheet that I can store this information. So I'm going to open up Google Sheet, and then I'm going to essentially create that sheet. So we can see right here, this Pure AI Testing 469 account. I'm going to click that connection, and then I'm going to jump into that actual account, right? And I'm going to create a sheet right here. We're just going to name it, let's say, Tally Testing. So Tally Testing, we just created that sheet, we named it. We're going to jump back here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to click search by path. We're searching in my drive, and then we're going to click here to choose the spreadsheet ID. And just like that, there is the sheet that we just created, Tally Test. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into the sheet, and I'm going to name the actual column headers. So what did we collect, right? We collected first name, and then last name, and then email, phone number, and then just go ahead and say business type, right? I don't actually remember the exact fields, but let's just go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different columns. At this point, what we're going to want to do is go back into make.com. I'm going to go back and just go back into it so that way it refreshes. I'm going to select my sheet one more time. Oh, looks like I'm on the wrong connection. Let me go ahead and switch it. There it is. And there it is, the sheet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select the sheet. So if we have different sheets inside of the actual Google Sheet, such as sheet 1, sheet 2, this is where we're going to be able to select that. And then here we're going to see the table contains headers. Here's the exact headers that we just created. Now, what we can do at this point is we're going to map those variables, the pieces of information that we collected in the form inside of here. The way we do that is we're literally going to click on the actual field, and you're going to see this pop up right here, which is going to contain all of the variables. This is literally every piece of information that we collected. Now we can map them into those specific fields that where they belong inside of the Google Sheet. So we're going to take first name and we're going to select the first name, and here it is. So this is the variable itself. The information is contained inside of this variable. Now imagine if a brand new person submitted a sheet. This piece of information, because it's a variable, the information inside of it can get replaced dynamically because it's generally not the exact hard-coded information. It is just a spot. It's just a seat for that information to sit in once it arrives. So this tells us that every time a first name arrives in this variable, the actual information, the data for that first name is going to go here. And we're going to do the same thing for last name. We're going to do the same thing for email address. And then we're going to do the same thing for phone number. Let's go ahead and stop right there. I'm going to click save. And at this point, we just connected Tally into Google Sheets. We're going to be storing that information. I'm going to click save right here to save the scenario. And we're going to test it one more time. So I'm going to click run once so that way it's listening, right? And so we're going to jump back into the form and submit it one more time, also with fake information, just to make sure that our connection is good. Company. Okay, boom. There we are. We are done. Let's go back and make sure this is listening. And now I'm going to click register, jump back into it one more time. And here it is. Now we can see both modules lit up. If I open up this Google Sheet right now, you guys are going to see that the information that we've just collected is now in the particular row in the columns where they belong. So we can see that the first name, last name, email, and phone number were collected almost immediately once that form was submitted. Now that we've verified the system is capturing leads in real time, we have to answer the next question, which is what do we do with this data once we have it? So let's ground this in a real world scenario. Imagine a prospect just submitted this form right here, and normally somebody on the team would receive whatever submission, read through the information, and start crafting a personalized reply. Probably write something like, hey, so-and-so, with their first name, thanks for reaching out. Could you tell us a little bit more about whatever you're looking for help with? What's your current budget? What specific challenges are you facing, etc.? Whatever email may be, it is manually typed out and personalized to them. And depending on the workload, it could be rushed, but generally it's a repetitive task. And more importantly, it's a task that generally does not need a human to do anymore to actually personalize. And that's where AI really becomes useful, not as a replacement, but as a natural extension of this workflow. So we're going to plug in an AI module to this specific workflow right here. We're going to feed it the data from the form and then have it write a personalized response to the lead automatically. And that response could ask relevant follow-up questions. It's going to express interest or even guide them towards the next step in your sales process. And the way we're going to do that is by giving this AI node a particular system prompt, which is going to be specific training in order to use that information in a particular way that we want. And we can actually train it based on how we want it to talk, what the tone is, the exact words, literally as detailed as you want, right? And that's essentially what we're going to do now. Now we're going to connect an AI model to our lead capturing automation here. That means whenever somebody submits a form, we're going to send that data to the large language model, the AI, and then it's going to instantly generate a custom personalized response, completely automated, nobody in the loop and needed. And this lets you send follow-ups that are personalized, auto reply with personalized responses, summarize the form submissions, and then even maybe guide them to the next step inside of your sales process, whatever it may be. So to make this work, we need something called an API key. Here's how to understand if you've never heard of it before. Imagine you're at a restaurant and you place an order with the waiter. So the waiter writes it down and brings it to the kitchen. The chef prepares the food and the waiter brings it back to your table. So in this analogy, you are the automation software. The kitchen is the large language model, the AI, which is the system that does the heavy work. And then the chef is the actual server that processes that request. So the waiter is going to be the API. It's the messenger that carries our request from the software that we automate with into make.com. And the API key, that's the thing that we need. That's kind of like your credit card. You have to give it to your waiter so that way they know that your request is legitimate and they can charge you for what you use. Without that credit card, they can't serve you. Just like how without the API key, the ChatGPT will not respond back to us. And so we have to get a key from OpenAI. And the way we do that is we have to add a small amount of credits to the account. It's going to be $5 worth at minimum. And we're not buying a subscription here. We're just loading the card into our system so that way their system can start processing requests only based on what you use. And that's because this is developer level access. We're not using the regular ChatGPT website anymore. We are connecting into the engine directly, the same way that apps and businesses do whenever they're trying to automate tasks, send messages, or process data behind the scenes. And that $5 actually goes a very long way. Let me show you how. OpenAI charges based on tokens. So think about tokens like little pieces of the word, right? Parts of the word. And about 1,000 tokens equals 750 words. And so if a form submission gets sent to ChatGPT and you ask it to generate a reply, that whole exchange might only use a few hundred tokens. And with GPT 4.1 Nano, which is very fast and reliable, pricing looks something like this. 10 cents for 1 million input and then 40 cents for 1 million output. That means you can generate thousands of responses for under $1, even if you use it daily in your workflow. So your flow is constantly steady here. And this is one of the most affordable and powerful things you can use inside of your automation stack. So now we're going to go ahead and grab this API key. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go to Google and then we're going to search for platform.openai. The link you want to go to is going to be platform.openai.com. We're going to click on that. And at this stage here, you're going to want to make sure you are signed in with your account. If you don't have an account, click create and then sign into it. Usually you can go ahead and create it with Google. But once you're signed in, you're going to see your account here at the top right. And then we're going to click on the settings icon. It's going to be on the top right of this page right here. We're going to click settings. And then here you're going to see your information about your organization. On the left side, under project, you're going to see API keys. Click on API keys, and here is where you're going to be able to create that key. So you guys can see I have several keys here created based on different projects, and this is only one of my accounts. But what I'm going to do for this account right here, this is the account that I'm going to be doing a lot of testing with. Maybe I want to get a brand new key. I'm going to click create new secret key at the top. And then once I click that, it's going to ask me to name this key. So this could be literally anything. I'm literally just going to name it testing 2, and then I'm going to click create secret key. Now, as you guys can see, I just got the key immediately. I'm going to be able to copy it. Be very careful who knows this key, because if anybody gets a hold of your API key, they can use it and then they can run up your credit card bill by using this key in order to use the resources inside of your account. So this is going to be a secret key. Make sure you store it safely. We're going to copy it and then click done. Now we're going to go back inside of our make.com automation software. And this doesn't have to be make.com, by the way. This generally of connecting to it is the same across the board, whether you're using N8N, Zapier, any sort of automation platform. Generally, you're going to need that key to establish this connection. And so what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to delete this, and as if I'm in your step, I'm going to click the plus button and then I'm going to search for OpenAI. The node we're looking for is going to be this create a completion. And if I scroll down here, you guys can see we can use different endpoints that are processed by that server. Meaning if we wanted to use ChatGPT's vision model or image model or whatever it may be, we had those options. But here, because we're doing a text completion, we're looking for a text response, we're going to click create a completion. And at this point, you will not see a connection right here. But the only reason you can see this page right here is because I already have a previous connection. What you're going to want to do is click create a connection here or click add, and then it's going to ask you for that key. So here we're just going to paste it and then name it. And as soon as I click save, everything is going to be done and configured. And then you're going to see a drop down looks just like this. When you see that, it means your connection is established. And now you can actually go ahead and dive into the configuration of your AI. Now, folks, once you see this page right here and you're at this stage, the very first thing is going to be create a chat completion. You're not going to change that. But then under that, you're going to see a drop down that's called model. Here's where we're going to be able to select the large language model that we actually want to work with. So if I click this drop down, you're going to see all of the large language models that are available through that API. And you guys can see we can use some reasoning models like the O4, O3s, O1. And then we also have the GPT 4.1 stack. We have 4.5, and then we have the 4.0, which is generally being used right now across the board as the general one. Now, what we're going to do is we can select any of these models to actually work with based on what they are. Now, keep in mind, some models are better at things than others. For example, O3 could be better at coding and more complex tasks than something like 4.1. So what you're going to want to do at this point is based on what it is you want, right? We're not talking about just this automation in general. You're going to want to know what these models are generally good for based on your use case whenever you're building AI automations. Now, in our case, we do have a very low barrier of entry because we're just creating textual responses Any model can handle that, not even just OpenAI. Any model here can do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the smallest one that can handle that task. It's going to be 4.1 nano, and that's going to be this guy right here. So what I'm going to do is now select it. And as soon as I select it, you're going to see we have this messages section pop up. And what does that mean here? So folks, inside of the actual configuration for ChatGPT, we have to provide it different types of instructions from different points of views. So think about it like this, right? I'm going to click this add a message here, and it's going to ask me what role do I want. If I click the drop down, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4 different roles. The 2 roles that you're going to be concerned with for the most part inside of this is going to be this developer/system role and then this user role. I'm going to explain to you what those are. I'm not going to dive into assistant and tool just now because you don't really need them for this scope. And I'm just going to explain to you how these 2 are used. So this developer/system role, this is going to be the system instructions for the AI. Imagine you have a brand new employee and you want to tell this employee what it is, what it's supposed to do, how to do it, generally what its job is. This is going to be bird's eye view, overview level instructions. Hey, you are a professional writer that responds to emails. Your job is to write emails based on input that you're going to be receiving. Make sure you do this. Make sure you say this. Here's how you put that. Organize it like this. Always end the email with blah, blah, blah. We are giving it general instructions. So that's going to be here. Whenever I click that, it's going to say, okay, what are those instructions? Now, as soon as I click that, mind you, the very first thing you notice is this pop-up right here. Now we have the option to use variables that we've collected from previous nodes. For example, if I wanted to reference some piece of information that we collected earlier, such as the first name or last name, I just click on it and then boom, right there, we just inserted that as a variable into its system prompt, meaning we can literally take the data and then we can throw it inside of our actual instructions and then tell it what to do with that specific data that we've collected. This variable is just a seed. It's not the actual data. It just holds the data. So the data itself is dynamic. It comes in and it goes out based on the submission. And that's the whole beauty of make.com and variables in general, is the fact that we can use these in conjunction with our training. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to tell it a specific instruction, and then we're going to add another role. Now, the second role is going to be that user role. And if I click user, what this means is basically this is just like you going to chatgpt.com and actually interacting with it. This is going to be where we give it the actual pieces of content, the actual input that it needs to use in order to execute its job. For example, hey, you have to write an email using the person's first name. If we want to feed the AI the first name, this is where we do it. We have to go here and tell it this is the first name. And then we would map the first name variable. So that way, whenever that first name gets collected inside of this training box right here, it knows that this is the first name. And so again, system prompt is the instructions, what it is, how it's supposed to do the job, what the actual job is, and all of those instructions. And then the user role is the actual data, the things that it needs to work with. And so we're going to use these hand in hand. We're going to craft this developer system prompt that's going to tell it how to respond, what it's supposed to do, all of that good stuff. And then here we're going to tell it the information it needs to use in that response that it needs to create. So boom, we went ahead and typed this developer system prompt. And this is basically the instructions. We said, you are an expert qualifier for clients. We told it what it's going to receive. So you always want to include that. You will receive a response from the client that they submitted a form, and then we're telling it what it's supposed to do. So your job is to deeply personalize an email to them with the goal of qualifying them for our services while maintaining it around what and who they are. So this is its job. We're telling it. Then we're telling it that the information that it's going to use. So it's going to say, okay, we want to qualify them based on their job title, biggest struggle. We want to know what is their budget, how soon are they willing to start. And then we're telling them to make sure to use the form submitted information to personalize this email. After that, we're telling it we only want the email body, right? So imagine if we're just asking that without this instruction, it's going to include the subject line inside of its output. We don't want that. We want to just use the output to map it later inside of that email body. So we're telling it only to output that. And then we want no other comments, punctuations, or extra wording besides the body. So what we're going to do now is we're going to head down and actually give it those pieces of information it needs to work with from the form by mapping it. So here inside of the user role, I said, here's the responses from the form, and then I just type first name. Now I'm going to head down and then I'm going to map the first name variable. We're going to do the same thing with the last name, and then the where do you work answers. You guys can see this is just the stuff that we collected from the form earlier, and we're just going to click on it inside of this window. So job title is going to be this thing, and then that's it. So now Optionally, you can actually limit how many tokens the response can use. Now, most of the time, it's not going to go and actually hit the ceiling if it doesn't need to. It's going to use enough, and it's only going to use as much as it needs. So you want to use this limiting based on the particular function and the actual job that you're doing. In this case, I'm just going to set it to whatever it is by default. And then I'm going to click save. And what we're going to do at this point is we are going to test this flow. So I'm going to head back into our tally, and then I'm going to copy the link one more time. And then we're going to fill this out and test it and see how it actually works. So in a brand new window here, I'm just going to type the actual form. And then what we're going to do, just like we did earlier, is we're going to run this automation so that way it's listening. That webhook is listening to us. And then we're going to fill out this information. So we're going to say Anmar, and then the last name, Pure AI. We're just going to give it a fake email, phone number, fake phone number as well. Where do you work? Let's just say, construction, and then we're just going to say engineer, country US. And as soon as I click register, we're going to jump back into the automation, and just like that, it caught the form. If we go back into the actual Google Sheet, we can see it just got filled out immediately, and then we can see the response was generated by the ChatGPT large language model. If I click this output bundle right here, we can see the results. So if I zoom in right here so that you guys can see that, this was the email that we got. Hi Anmar, so we use my name. Thank you for sharing your information. As an engineer working in construction, I'd love to understand more the biggest challenges you're currently facing in your role. Knowing this will help us identify how we can best support. Could you also share the budget and how soon you're looking to get started? Folks, this is absolutely amazing. It's so natural. This will give us a clear idea of how to tailor our services for you. Looking forward to your response. Imagine receiving this automated. It's using their name, their information, and it's actually getting the pieces of information that we want. Following up, this would have to be manually typed by somebody. Think about that, folks. Now, the thing I don't like here is it's using your name at the end. We don't want to do that, obviously, because we want this to be usable. So what we're going to do here is go back to the system prompt, and we're going to amend it. And I'm literally going to go back into its instructions, and I'm going to say, whenever it's doing the best regards, do not use your name. Instead, use our company name. So we're going to say, whenever you output the regards at the end of the email, use Pure AI as the name. And just like that, I'm going to click save, and then we're going to test it one more time. So another thing you can do is, if you don't feel like running this flow from the beginning, what you can do is you can right click on a module, click run this module only, and it's going to ask you to fill in only those variables. So it's going to ask us, okay, what pieces of information should we work with for this run? So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say Anmar, and then I'm going to say Pure AI, and we're going to do construction. Let's see, job title is engineer, and then I'm going to click OK, and you guys can see it ran only just this module, and we got a brand new output. And at the end, look at that, it immediately changed it. So boom, now we have a perfectly usable email body. What do we have to do at this point? Well, think about it. We have to actually send this email or notify the team based on whatever it is you want to do. Now, if you wanted to notify the team, you can also notify the team via email, or if maybe you guys, your team uses Slack, Discord, whatever it may be. All you would have to do is click this plus sign, search for the business application you want, and most of the time it's going to be here inside of these native integrations. So if I wanted to use Slack, for example, there it is right here. Just search for Slack, and then at this point I would create a message, do the same thing we did earlier, tie our Slack account into it, connect it, and then boom, just like that, I would fill in those variables and send it in a Slack message either to somebody or a public channel or private channel, whatever it may be. Now we're dynamically alerting the entire team. But at this point, what we're gonna want to do is email the actual client. So I'm going to use Outlook in this case because I feel like most people use Outlook. You can also use Gmail. You can use whatever email client you want. Keep in mind the connection of Gmail is a little bit different, and I actually have another video on how to connect the Gmail module. So in this case, just for time's sake, I'm going to use Outlook, and we're just going to do the exact same thing as we did earlier. We're going to create and send a message. And if you have not connected your Outlook account, it is super simple. You would click create a connection, click add, and here you would just sign in. There's nothing else to do. Whenever you click save, it's going to ask you to sign into your Outlook. You're going to sign in, and then boom, like that. So here we have the subject line, body content, and then the recipient. So for the subject line, we're going to use a combination of both static information and dynamic information. Static information, it just stays. It's just things that we type in the subject line, does not change. And so what we're going to do is say, hey, and then maybe we're going to say their name. So, hey, first name, let's talk, right? So think about this. Every time this form gets submitted, that person's name in the form is going to come here inside of the subject line of that email that goes out to them. And the body content, what is that going to be, folks? You guessed it. That's literally going to be the result of the ChatGPT module. So I'm going to click result, and that's it. We are done. Then the recipient, the email address, where did we collect that in our flow? That's going to be also the form. So if I go back into this and then I click on the email address field, it's going to send it directly to whatever email address that was collected. And now what we're going to do is we're going to click save. Now, folks, think about this, right? We just filled out a form. We don't want to get that. Normally, whenever somebody fills out the form, we don't get an email from the team immediately. We usually get it within, say an hour or two, maybe even more. But what we're going to do here is we're going to simulate our team being proactive about this email. And we're going to send it not immediately, but maybe we want to wait a little bit of time, maybe like a few minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to right click, click add a module, and then we're going to search for the sleep module. This allows us to delay the execution of the workflow for a set amount of seconds that we choose. And we have a maximum of 300. So let's say we wanted to wait maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes, whatever it may be. You would just, do the increments of 60 in that. So let's just go ahead and do, say 3 minutes here, okay? Or just for testing purposes, we're going to actually leave this out because we want to make sure that we are actually sending the email. Once that email gets sent and we successfully verified it's going through, then we're going to add that sleep module back, and then we're going to configure how many seconds we want to wait. So that's going to be essentially the amount of time that our team would, maybe take to actually look at the email, type it up, and then send it back. I'm going to actually run this flow from the beginning, from the same time, and then we are going to go back to the registration form and then just fill it out one more time. So it's going to be first name, Anmar, last name, Pure AI. Now I'm going to actually put in my email address because I do expect to receive an email. So I'm going to type in my email. This is just the one for testing. We're going to do, and then company is going to be construction, engineer, and US. So just like that, all right, we're going to click register, jump back here. We can see that everything is being done in the background. We just collected that information. And now let's see here. So it looks like an email was successfully sent from my Outlook to my actual other email. So what I'm going to do now is literally go into my other mailbox, and I'm going to show you the email that was received. And boom, just like that, folks, we can see we received an email right now at the top. Click on it, and here it is. Now you guys can see it is poorly formatted. I'm going to go back and show you guys how to fix this right now. Obviously, this is not the formatting for that, but we can at least verify that the email is being sent and is being received on the other end. So the way we format this is obviously we want to maintain this formatting. We're going to use a bit of HTML inside of there to tell it what kind of spacing to use. And then we're going to do that actually inside of the ChatGPT node. So whenever we want to space, we're going to use this particular piece of code right here. So we're going to go back to the system prompt and say, make sure wherever there is spacing inside of your output to use the HTML code for BR, right? That doesn't make sense to you, but inside of HTML code, this is basically how we insert spaces inside of our output, right? And we're going to go ahead and test that one more time. I'm literally going to run this scenario once more. I'm going to fill out the form, and then we're going to see the actual new update that we received inside of our email. So let's go ahead and just do that. Okay, and just like that, click register, jump back into it, and now let's go ahead and crafting the message. It's going to send it to our Outlook through our Outlook, and now we're going to jump back into Gmail and see what that looks like. And boom, there it is. So this is the new email that just arrived right now, and you guys can see the spacing for it is proper, right? We're actually doing the piece of code that allows for that space to be generated inside of the AI. Now, if there's any imperfections that you want to fix, you can actually fix those with subsequent AI modules that would fix them. For example, we can see that their name is not capitalized. Well, you can insert a small model that would just take the first name, extract it out of their input, and maybe just capitalize it. So then you would map the actual collected name from the form and then have it capitalize it. Or you can use a function inside of make.com. But just to make your life easier so that way you don't have to learn how to use functions, then you can just use subsequent AI modules to do these little imperfections, and then you can take that output of them and then use it inside of the email module.